So let's talk about anxiety then, because I really do agree with you, and I think that this is spot on, that this has got to be one of the primary reasons we're experiencing a lot more anxiety today, is that we're on constant, like, high alert. And as you say, it's anxiety is what? You said a response to
a perceived threat or a real threat.
Yeah.
And we don't always know the difference.
Yeah.
Right? Because if our body is responding to a perceived threat as if it's real, then we're going to have all the same symptoms. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
So we go into fight or flight all day long, often without even realizing it. It might not be extreme, but it's almost this chronic low-level anxiety that's going on all the time. And that's why I really do believe that we have an epidemic of anxiety and depression, because at some point your body is so tired from that you can slip into the opposite, right? Anxiety is being a high alert, and depression is being under.
That's what so tell us, we've spent a little bit talking about anxiety, and I want to continue doing that,
right.
But what is depression, just real quick?
Well, it's a complicated phenomenon, right? But it is also like the sense of loss of motivation, almost a sense of kind of malaise. You feel sort of stuck. It's kind of the body almost coming down, if you will.
So is this almost the inevitable result of prolonged anxiety?
Yes, right. Because your body is as it can be. It's not always.
Yes.
It's one way, and your body is overstressed over time, and eventually your body basically, because it's not designed to be in constant fight or flight. It isn't. That's not. Our bodies are meant to be temporarily in that state, and so it causes so much stress in the body, and the different hormones, like and the different things that are chemicals and things that are going on in your body are just overwhelmed that it sinks into depression, so to speak.
So I would be interested to hear how you help people with anxiety, because it would seem like if our diagnosis is accurate and that technology is in large part due to the anxiety we're experiencing. Not always. Of course, human relationships with family members and things like that, of course, can play into it. But I would imagine that there would be two basic approaches. One would be to kind of help you live the same life you're living right now, but
right.
Live it better. Be more responsible as to when you check your email, what media you take in, and so forth.
Right.
But sometimes I wonder if we should be a little more bolder than that and be like, yeah, you need to just...
Right.
Maybe we should be taking a more radical approach and just get off social media.
Right. That's not always practical, depending, in some cases it is. So to me, I have two different approaches. One is structural and systemic. So it is taking a look at your life and what are the changes that you can make in your life to live a better life. Maybe that means a job change if you're driving for an hour there and back. That's not always possible for some people. Maybe it is specifically adding things into your life and removing other things, right? So there could be like social media or whatnot, or putting serious limits. So those are all structural and systemic changes.
Okay.
The other kind of change is to actually recognize what's happening to your body and becoming more and more present throughout the day, and recognizing the perceived threats, and then having some tools to be able to kind of deregulate, or kind of come down from the stress in natural ways, so that you can have that ride, maybe that drive for an hour. Maybe you can't help it, you got to feed your kids, it's the only job, whatever, but maybe that hour drive can actually be a time of, to some extent, relaxation and restoration. Within limits in a car. Yeah. But rather
you
than
don't listen to talk radio, you listen to Gregorian chant or something more.
Definitely. But I think it begins with the body. I kind of have this formula, and I say, you start with the body, then go to emotions, and then go to cognitions. So the very first thing one has to do is to recognize what is going on in the body in the present moment. So like right now, for example, I'm talking to you and we're doing a show, right? So immediately as an introvert, I could be stressed by that. So the first thing I have to do is sort of, okay, what's going on in my body? Right?
And what does that mean?
So am I tense?
Okay.
To start with, like, are my muscles kind of clenching, and where am I doing that? Is that in my pelvic floor? Is that in my shoulders? Is that in my hands, my jaw, wherever it might be? And then just stop for a moment and go, hey, I'm having that physical reaction, and yet nothing really bad is happening. I'm just sitting here with Matt. So I could just kind of like go, all right, invite my body to relax and go, you know what? Matt's a nice guy. I'm doing something I think is important. It's going to be okay. And then also adding to that, maybe taking a breath, which probably I should have done before now. right? And just sort of take a breath and
Yeah.
just allow oxygen to kind of come in. And then I'm telling my brain, my body is literally sending messages up my spine, basically to my amygdala, that core, that part of the brain, that primitive part of the brain that manages fear and stuff like that initially. And it's literally sending the message, Gerry, you are safe right now.
You know what's funny? This is me being a little vulnerable, but last night I was quite stressed out. The kitchen was a mess. Everything felt like it was chaotic.
Right.
My children were kind of playing up a lot, and I was trying to get them to do things, and they weren't doing them, and ended up sending them to bed. And I just felt angry and tight. But I don't think I would have realized I felt tight had it not been for your help, back in the day. Anyway, Cameron, my wife, came upstairs and we talked for a little bit, and she said, go for a walk. And so I went for a walk, and I started praying the Jesus prayer, breathing from my diaphragm, not just short, shallow breaths, which is what you tend to do when you're upset.
Right.
And I actually... you tell me what you think about this. It's a little embarrassing to say maybe on air, but I actually said to myself, like, it's okay. Like, you're safe. You're safe. And I realized that anger was a response to a threat, and maybe that threat was, I don't know, like not being respected the way I think I should. Maybe chaos, around me was seeming like it was encroaching in on me, but just it was actually more of a prayer experience. I was in the context of prayer. It was almost like my Heavenly Father saying to me, like, all is well.
Yeah.
All is well. And then all of the anxieties that I'd be like, yeah, but like the way I reacted to one of my children today, like that's terrible. I shouldn't have done that. Like, all is well.
Yeah.
And not in sort of a fatalist way. I mean, there's things I should perhaps need to change, but it gets exactly what you were talking about. And I realized I was all hunched up, and I'm like, okay, like it's okay.
Yeah.
So back to the body.
No, you did exactly the right thing. That's fantastic. You noticed your body.
This is so much cheaper than paying you for therapy. These cameras aren't even rolling. This is just a therapy session. That's a joke.
There we
Sorry.
go. Yes. Well, yeah, you did it. You started with the body, and you recognized you were tense, and you did something about it. You did some breathing. You did some muscle relaxation. You actually did an awesome thing. You went to the emotional center. You invited God into that space, which I think is beautiful and wonderful and really powerful. You allowed God to actually soothe the emotional part that was distressed. Then you actually went to the cognitions, and you were able at that point to go, hey, you know what? It's no big deal. I don't know exactly you said this, but it's no big deal. My house is messy. You're able to, like, I can manage that or whatever. You're able to actually resolve that part cognitively. But you wouldn't have been able to probably get there or not as well if you had skipped the body and skipped the emotional center and did what most of us do, is go right to the cognitions. But what happens there is that when you haven't had your body soothed or your emotional center soothed, then you're going to have a lot more critical thinking. Like, well, why are you so stressed? What's wrong with you? What's your problem? And it leads to more anxiety and makes the cycle actually worse.
So you said that, anxiety, we tend to respond to a perceived or real threat through fight or flight.
Right.
And you said that we're experiencing anxiety in higher degrees today than perhaps we did in the past. So would it follow then that we're also dealing with anger? Since I imagine that is often what fight looks like in a way that we didn't in the past, or not necessarily?
Wow, good question. It's interesting. Anger is a really interesting emotion, for one thing, because it can be what I call a primary emotion. So our primary emotions are, kind of, they're not good or bad.
Yeah.
They're just what we feel.
Yep.
Shame, guilt, joy, sadness, hurt, all these different emotions are kind of the primary emotions. And anger can be when it's something where you have a righteous kind of reaction to something that's just wrong.
Yeah, you want to remedy something.
So anger is the emotion that one feels in that situation. What you do with that anger could be a number of things that are actually sinful or not.
It can also be clouding, though, can't it? It's not just, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not just what we do with it. It seems like there's a type of anger that almost clouds our reason. Right. So the good anger would propel us to remedy something that is in need of remedy.
Motivates us, yeah. Whereas now I call anger sometimes can be a secondary emotion. It's the only one that I kind of see that way. And that's when it's covering up another emotion. Okay. So if you hurt my feelings, and I feel that just a little bit, and I don't like that, so I quickly go to anger, then I'm like cursing at you.
Yes.
Right? That's then anger. That's anger as a secondary emotion.
Yeah, this is what was happening to me last night. I think and when I say angry, like I wasn't shouting or hitting anything or, like kicking the cat or the dog, not that I do that, but I wasn't doing anything like that. It was just, I was feeling angry and I realized that it was a way of like protecting this fear that things are out of my control and not well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But see, you named it there, fear.
Yeah.
So fear is another, I didn't mention it, but fear is another primary emotion. Nobody wants to feel fear. So you go from fear quickly to anger.
Yes.
Men do it more than women, I think, because we're almost trained that it's okay.
Huh.
Like anger is one of those, you shouldn't cry, but if you're angry, you're a guy.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
On some level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hey, if you enjoyed that clip, you will absolutely love the full interview, so click right there to enjoy the whole thing. Also, a big thanks to these groups who made that interview possible. Learn more in the show notes below about these guys. They're absolutely incredible and honored to have them as sponsors. Oh, and also, if you haven't subscribed yet, click subscribe and then that bell button. That way YouTube will be forced to let you know when we put out more content.